Hey guys, welcome to a weekly story time. If you like these story times, give this video a like, leave me a comment, let me know what you think down below, and subscribe if you're not already. All those things really do help us out here on YouTube. And if you want to help support us, help us continue to do what we do here, the best place to do that is over on Patreon, so link to our Patreon is down below. On this week's story time, I want to talk about something that I did that was kind of a repeat offense and how that kind of played out. So in one of my previous story times, I talked about when I went out of town, forgetting to text Coda and the fallout from all of that. So when I went out of town this last week, we had more of a game plan. The expectations were the same. I was still expected to text him when I was arriving and leaving each location I was at so that he could have that connection to me throughout the day, so that he knew where I was and what I was doing, all the things, right? And I had done so well. I really went into this being out of town this time with experience, with the knowledge of what the expectations were and what it would be to follow those expectations. And so I really was doing so well. I had, adhered to all of the rules that he had set up, which when I'm out of town, I still have a bedtime. I still have a expected wake up time. I still need to get, all of my self-care stuff taken care of, my vitamins, my water, all the things. He still wants me taking care of myself. Obviously, the other expectations are not really applicable. I'm not necessarily doing all of my routines and things that I would be doing at home, but there are certain things that are very transferable into that situation. And so he kind of set up what the expectations were. But one of the biggest ones was that I needed to text him when I get to different places, when I leave places, just so that he has kind of that information. So, because even though he's not with me, he still wants to know that I'm safe and kind of know where I'm at. So I had done really, really well. I had been going to bed on time every night. I had been calling to check in. I had been waking up on time. I've been doing all my self-care stuff. Everything was going great. And I had been texting him when I would leave places, when I would arrive. Everything was going great until the fourth day that I was there, and I made a mistake. I forgot to text him when we were leaving somewhere, and the circumstances around it, which don't matter because accountability is accountability, the rule is the rule, but the circumstances were that I was texting him, we were having a text exchange conversation, Coda and I, about something unrelated as I was leaving this location, and I just completely forgot to mention, hey, leaving now. And it was kind of a hectic time. It was kind of busy. And so it slipped my mind, and I absolutely have no excuse because none of those things matter. I knew the expectation. I knew what Coda needed from me, and I didn't do it. And so we got to where we were going, and it dawned on me that I never texted him that I left. And I was disappointed in myself. I didn't want to have to tell him, but I did, because it was the right thing to do. There is an expectation that I self-report when I have failed to meet expectations. And so it was very important for me to be honest, to fess up to him basically, and to let him know that I had failed to meet those expectations. So I did. As soon as we got to where we were going, I texted him and I was like, we left to go here, and I completely forgot to tell you that we left, that we were leaving when we did. And he immediately texted back. Now, if you remember my last story time with this exact situation, he, in the past, made an exception, which led to a big emotional spiral on my part and led to a really intense conversation that then led to disrespectful behavior, and it became a big thing. So he let me know before I went on this trip this time, that he would not be making that mistake again. And to his word, he did not. So immediately he texted me back. He was like, thank you for being honest. I'm going to make a note of that, which I know means that I'm going to be getting a spanking when I get home. I did text him back, and I asked if I could know what I was in for. Was this going to be a punishment? Was this going to be a correction? And he texted me back and he said that yes, he would let me know. And as of right now, it was a correction, meaning that if I continued to forget or if I continued to add to it, he would just turn that into a punishment. And so I was very, very mindful and aware not to forget again. And I didn't. I was feeling disappointed in myself, obviously. I really hated that I failed to meet expectations. I really hated that I put myself into a position to receive a spanking. I wasn't looking forward to having to go through that, but I was very settled in the fact that Coda really stepped up and didn't make an exception, because there was really no reason to make an exception. Nothing was happening that it would be beyond my control to just send him a quick text. There was no reason I shouldn't have been able to meet that expectation. I was just forgetful. And so because that was the case, he was very quick to basically ensure that he was going to hold accountability. And I felt very settled with that. I felt very comfortable that he was maintaining his authority in that situation. And we didn't have any type of follow-up conversation that led to, we didn't have that like fallout that we had last time. We did talk that evening. We talked throughout the day, and it was all very good conversation. Now, the one good thing about Coda is, even if I have a spanking coming, that is not the center of every conversation we have. It's actually not really mentioned unless I bring it up. And one thing that I really appreciated is, because it had to be delayed because I was out of town, it was going to be like 2 days before I was going home. One thing that I really appreciated is, even when I brought it up, even when I apologized, he didn't tell me that he accepted my apology. He didn't tell me that it was okay or that he forgave me. And that's really important to my mindset, because if I apologize to Coda for something and he says that he forgives me, or that it's okay, or, anything like that, then I start to feel insecure in the fact that he's still going to follow through with the spanking. Because in my mind, if he already forgives me, if I've already apologized and have received his forgiveness, then the spanking is unnecessary. Even though it's still the consequence, even though it still makes sense that I would have to, go through that accountability, if he extends forgiveness before he gives me the consequence, it really does kind of like, it's a psychological thing. It just kind of like messes with my mindset around being able to accept accountability. And so what I really appreciated is, I did apologize to Coda. I really was like, I am so sorry that I did that. And he said, we'll take care of that when you get home. He never said, I forgive you, or it's okay. And I really appreciate that he didn't do that, because I know that it was probably very, very tempting for him to offer that forgiveness, because that's who he is. He wants to forgive me. He wants to move on, but he knows that until I receive that consequence, until I receive my spanking, then I can't hear him forgive me. And it's really not good for him either to extend that forgiveness, because it becomes harder for him to give the spanking. So I did great the rest of the trip, followed all the rules, texted him my location at all times, checked in when I was supposed to, did everything I was supposed to the rest of the trip. So it was just that one instance. So when I came home, I got home around 8 o'clock at night. And so we were able to take care of the correction the night that I came home. And I was so thankful, because I really didn't want to put it off any further. It had already been delayed a few days. I didn't want to delay it any more than it necessarily had to be. And so we came out. He didn't lecture me, because we had already talked about it. I knew exactly what I did. I knew that it was unacceptable. And so he didn't really lecture me at all. We came out. He said, you know what you did, you know that it was unacceptable. And so he had me just get ready and get in position right away. As all my spankings do, he started with the leather paddle. With corrections, the leather paddle is kind of the majority of the correction. So he did 1.5 minutes on each side with the leather paddle. Because I hadn't been spanked in several days, I think it had been like 5 or 6 days at that point, actually maybe even a little longer. It felt super intense. It was like my skin was just kind of fresh and new, if you will. And so it was really a lot to take. Usually the leather paddle is not as intense as any of our other implements, and it still wasn't, but it was way more intense than it typically is. And I think that that's twofold. I think that it had been a while since I'd been spanked. I also think that Coda's getting a lot more proficient with that little leather paddle that we have. And so he did 1.5 minutes on each side. Typically I can kind of settle into the sensation of that leather paddle. The role of that leather paddle is really to prepare my skin to accept the more intense sensation of our other implements. But this time I could not settle into the sensation. I felt every single hit of that paddle against my skin. It was just a lot to take, but after he did the leather paddle, then he moved on to the loop. I was kind of surprised because I almost expected him to use our strap because it was an earned correction, and that's typically what happens, but he decided not to. He decided just to go straight into the loop. I was thankful at the time because I felt like it was very kind of him not to make the correction longer than our base structure, because typically earned corrections include the strap, which makes it a minute longer than the base structure, but he decided to just use the base structure of corrections, which is the leather paddle and then one additional implement. And so he went in with the loop and he did a minute on each side. A minute is a long time. It really is. I mean, it's not as long as a punishment would be for us, but it is a long time. And so he used the loop. The loop is so intense. It is so hard to take. In my opinion, it is one of our more severe implements, and because it was earned, it was at a higher intensity than typical like morning corrections or even corrections that I ask for like mood regulation or just emotional regulation. It's higher. It's a higher intensity when it's earned, and so he was going in pretty hard with the loop. It was really overwhelming. One thing that I really appreciate is when Coda does intend to deliver a more severe sensation, a more severe spanking, he will put his hand on the small of my back and just apply enough pressure that I understand that I need to stay more still. And I really, really appreciate that because it gives me kind of a tangible connection to his authority through that spanking process. And it gives me something to feel anchored to, because the way I'm positioned, my feet don't touch the ground, so I don't have the anchor of my feet touching anything. I am very supported. My torso is very, very supported, so I do have the ability to have a pillow that I can kind of cling onto, but just having his hand on my back makes me it psychologically gives me that anchor point to kind of feel a little bit more grounded into the process. And when he's delivering a more severe spanking, it's really important for me to have that anchor point, just so that I don't try to move as much. Again, it is all very psychological, and obviously I am telling myself in my head that I need to submit to this process, that this is what it feels like when I'm not intentional to follow the rules. That was very much on the forefront of my mind as I was being spanked, is this is what it feels like when I'm not intentional to follow the rules, that I should have been more intentional to follow the rules, that I need to submit to this process because I am required to obey Coda and to obey the rules that he has set up. So that was all going through my mind. He gets through the first minute, and then he moves to the other side. He does the minute on that side. It's, again, super intense. I just am beside myself. Like, I am crying so hard. It is so much to take. And again, I'm just going through my thought process of like, I need to submit to this. I need to submit to Coda. I need to obey him. This is what it feels like when I don't follow the rules. This is what it feels like when I'm not intentional about following the rules. And I'm thinking through all of those things. And that really does help me kind of accept the punishment as well, because I don't have an excuse. I don't go in thinking that I don't deserve this. I absolutely knew that I did. I knew that this was the consequence for the action that I chose. And yes, it was a mistake. It wasn't an intentional, like, I'm going to choose not to do what I'm supposed to do here, but I wasn't intentional to follow the rules, right? And that was still a choice. I still had the choice to follow the rule or to be forgetful, to not put that into a place of importance in my mind to remember. And so because I did that, I did choose to not prioritize remembering to follow the rules. This was the outcome of that choice. And so I knew that I deserved it. I knew that this was something that I needed to accept. And by accepting it, I was able to yield. I was able to get to a place of true remorse. And I was crying so hard. He finished with the loop on the second side. And at this point, I wasn't sure that that was the end of the spanking, because he does have the option to add time if he chooses. So he could have pulled out another implement and done another minute on each side if that was something that he felt was needed in this situation. Luckily, that was the end of the spanking. I always know that it's the end of the spanking because we have a sound machine that we put on as the spanking is happening. That's just for my peace of mind to know that no one is hearing what's going on outside of our studio space. And so he always turns off the sound machine, and that's kind of the signal to me that the spanking is done. So he comes over to me, he tells me that I can get out of position. After some time, we come together, I apologize. I tell him that I am really sorry for not being intentional to follow the rules, that I know that it is within my role and my position to obey him and to make sure that he knows where I'm at. And he accepts my apology. I ask for his forgiveness. He gives me his forgiveness. He acknowledges that it is important for him to know where I'm at and that he has these rules for a reason and I do need to follow them and I'm expected to follow them. And when I don't, then that is why he has to follow through with consequences. I acknowledge that I understand all that and that I will be more intentional, and I have that I will put the rules that he has put into place for me at a point of priority in my mind so that I don't forget. And he said that he appreciates that he wants me to do that. And then we just spent time together, just kind of reconnecting, talking. He always lets me, we always come back to a place of just being casual with each other after spanking and getting back to a really good place in our relationship. And so that is kind of how that played out. I was disappointed that I made the exact same mistake twice in the exact same scenario. And so that is something that I'm going to have to be really, really intentional about in the future, because I don't want to continue to make this mistake, because I know that not texting my location, because that is an expectation even when I am home, that if I am out and about running errands or doing anything outside the home, that Dakota does want me to text my location to him when I leave and arrive places. Because that has been an ongoing kind of point of, just being unintentional and not following through with, I know that it is at some point, probably in the very near future, going to become a punishment over a correction, because it really does need to change. It really does need to become a point of importance within my brain to say, we really don't want to forget this. And so I am really, really hoping that this really will solidify that in my mind and it won't be a problem in the future, because I know that in the future, it might be a more severe consequence that I really don't want to go through. So all that to say, I hope you enjoyed this story time. I hope that you got something out of it. And let me know what you think down below. Leave me a comment, give this video a like, all the good things, and we will talk to you next time.